Can you explain why alfalfa is not good to feed exclusively? More specifically, is feeding a hard-keeping senior full alfalfa forage during winter okay? Alfalfa
So
is a
alfalfa,
great topic.
it is because it's I get asked it a lot,
Mm-hmm.
and like the carrot question earlier, it's a bit controversial in
Yes.
that depending on where you live and what kind of horses you have, there are people who love alfalfa and there are people who hate it. And I'm not sure I know anybody who's sort of in between, sort of like, man, it's, if people feel very strongly about this. If you're in California, they have a lot of it because it grows in more dry conditions. So places in our country that are wetter are not gonna have as much of it.
Mm-hmm.
So um, that said, I think the reason she is concerned or has heard warnings about it is because the vet school in California, UC Davis, issued a report that said almost 100% of the horses they saw for a certain colic surgical condition, enterolis, which is stones in the intestinal tract,
Okay.
those horses, when they did like a survey of why maybe you have this, at least horses who were on at least a 50% alfalfa diet had the stones. So there is a
Mm.
link. There is a link between feeding of at least half your diet, half your forage in alfalfa, and the development of enterolis. Now we know alfalfa is high in calcium, but it
Correct.
actually seems to be the magnesium in the
Oh,
alfalfa that is linked to stones.
I would assume it was the calcium.
Right, yeah, but they're like struvite crystals in cats, so it's magnesium. But
Okay.
alfalfa, so for the good side, that's the bad side. The good side is it's high in calcium, it's high in protein, and it's high in calories. What
Mm-hmm.
is surprising to a lot of people is that it's not high in the non-structural carbohydrates, the NSCs, the
Yes.
sugars and starches. It's actually usually lower than grass hay. So for people who are not feeding alfalfa because they're worried about sugars and starches, they've got it a little bit backwards.
That is commonly the theory there. A lot of people say the horse
Yeah,
because of the sugars that were in alfalfa, usually.
yeah, no. It is high in calories though. So
Yeah,
she wants to feed it to her senior horse, who I suspect is maybe thin or underweight. Hard, well, she's a hard keeper, I think.
and
Um,
especially during the winter.
Yeah, and that makes perfect sense. I mean, I when I had an off-the-track thoroughbred that was a hard keeper, I fed him alfalfa a little bit, like one flake of alfalfa and maybe four flakes of grass hay. So I mixed it. But you could also feed. It wouldn't have to be just long-stem forage. You could also feed alfalfa hay cubes
Hmm.
or alfalfa hay pellets if that's like easier to soak and they're more condensed, so they fit in a feed tub better. Hay can be messy and bigger, so
Yeah.
so good for the underweight horse, um, and good for horses that need to be on a high plane of nutrition. So your late term pregnant mare, your lactating mare, young and growing horses, race horses that are expending a lot of energy working. Um,
Mm.
and we also found there were some studies years ago that said horses prone to gastric ulcers do better when they're given alfalfa hay. But
Is
it's
that
like
because
go ahead.
I was gonna say because the higher calcium that would be in it?
Well, they think, but they're not sure. They think that maybe the calcium buffers the stomach from the acid that
Mm.
causes the ulcers. But again, it's not a straight diet of alfalfa hay. It's it's adding to their grass basis, adding
Yes.
flake here to flake there. Maybe they get grass hay like ad lib, like all the time, and then they get a flake of alfalfa at meals and a flake of like morning and night. So not all the time.
Something you brought up that I thought was also a good point was talking about like the soaking of alfalfa cubes, which could also potentially be a good option for her if she's feeding for her senior horse in the winter. Just another option of giving like making sure getting moisture and water
Sure.
into the system as well. So
Yep.
absolutely.
And I don't know if this is part of her issue, but alfalfa is really tasty. We call it ice cream at my barn. Um, we we always have some, and we use it for when horses they get it as a treat if they need a distraction. So right now they're not allowed on the grass pasture full time. We're
Hmm.
building their tolerance up, and so when they're brought in and they're a little bit cranky because they have to be on the dry lot, then we give them some alfalfa, and suddenly, you know, the sun's shining again. It's all better. So, but where I would not use it is the horse that's overweight, because it is very nutrient dense, very high in calories. Since it's got so much calcium, its ratio of calcium to phosphorus is way above what it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be 1.2 to 2 to 1, and this can be 4 to 1. I've seen some as high as 6 to 8 to 1. So in those cases where it would not be beneficial for there to be too much calcium, so you don't want to even give the pregnant or lactating broodmare or the young horse full alfalfa, because it's too much calcium and not enough phosphorus, and the balance isn't there. But also times where if excess protein is a problem. So, you know, if you feed a horse too much protein, they're getting more than they need. They just pee out. So especially in the winter, if the horse doesn't need it, they're going to be drinking more and peeing more and stinking up the barn with the ammonia in the stall, right?
Nobody wants that.
Nobody wants that. So, but on the other hand, it's good for the horses that need a better top line because there's more protein in it, specifically the amino acid lysine, which we know is the first limiting. So you want to think carefully about alfalfa and use it judiciously. It's not a terrible food. It's not a perfect food. So it has its places.
Well, that's what I was going to say. It sounds like used a little bit strategically with the horse that you're currently working with. And it's not just like a blanketed thing where everyone in the barn gets this much alfalfa. It might have to be adjusted based on your horse's personal needs and work condition and things of that nature.
Exactly. Very well put.
Thank you. Well, hopefully that helps you guys out and hopefully helps your senior out.